Hi, I'm Barney, and today I'm going to be talking about music technology from a student's perspective. And I'm going to break this down into three sections. Firstly, how I got involved with music. Then I'm going to talk about how I found the interview and application process to conservatoires. Aiming to study electronic music, I applied to these conservatoires this year. And finally, I'm going to talk for a while about how I create and publish my own music. But first off, here's a bit about me. So I studied music GCSE and A-level at the Lancaster Royal Grammar School, and I'm planning to study electronic music at the Guildhall from September this year. I started working with music technology and in music production around 10 years ago, and I've been working in Ableton for over 4 years, since the beginning of 2017. I also have experience in Logic, Cubase, Reason and FL Studio, but Ableton is my main piece of software. And also I took one-to-one lessons in Ableton as part of my GCSE and A-level music courses, and these were offered by my school. So first off, how I got involved with music. Now, I would say I had a fairly traditional path into music. I started taking guitar lessons at my primary school at a very young age, and I began to sing in church and school choirs, as well as cantoring in my local cathedral. I first became interested in music production in particular while I was recording cover songs in Logic with my guitar teacher. After that, I started making electronic music in GarageBand, and then I was introduced to Ableton through my school. I became interested in music as a career when I started posting music on SoundCloud, and then later started releasing it properly on platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music, and it was at this point that I began to consider applying to a conservatoire in order to study electronic music. So now I'm going to talk about the application and interview process I had when I applied to conservatoires to study music technology this year. So electronic music courses are fairly new in conservatoires, and because of that they're not very well known. However, they are gaining traction. I had interviewers who told me that they had seen record numbers of applicants to electronic music and music technology courses this year. Obviously, they're often less well known or well advertised as the other courses offered. I heard about the Guildhall's electronic course, for example, the one that I'm planning to go on in September, through a friend who is now studying as a first-year student there. So what I've found is that these courses tend to be known through word of mouth, even still. And then I went on to UCAS conservatoires and looked at other music technology courses, and I found 2 or 3 courses on UCAS. Now, I found that the application and interview process to these conservatoires did stray a bit from what you would expect. So I applied to 3 different conservatoires this year, and the conservatoire applications were a different format to traditional ones. Most applications required me to submit a portfolio. Now, often there wasn't a set limit or a set minimum on how many tracks could be in that portfolio, but most of the conservatoires stressed that they wanted to hear quality over quantity. Live auditions in electronic music and music technology courses are obviously much rarer, although I was briefly examined on my musical theory and practical skills in a couple of the interviews. Apart from that, the interviews I found were often far more informal than I was used to. It was much less of a question and answer with the interviewer and more of a discussion with them about my own influences, my musical development so far, and my plans in the world of music for the future. And what you're likely to expect with electronic music courses is that the people who are running the courses are young and kind of fresh-faced and excited about the courses that they're running, which means that the interviews are often different and in some ways more comfortable, I found. So now I'm going to talk about my own music and how I create and publish that. In terms of producing my own music, I do everything in Ableton, which is a personal preference of mine. I've worked in other software. I enjoy working in Ableton the most. I know that music production software is often viewed as being very expensive, but I found a few ways around that recently. For example, X4 Serum, which is a plugin which is hugely used in the industry and has been for several years now, you can now rent to own that plugin through a website called Splice, which works out very cheaply per month. And equally, other websites like Plugin Boutique often give away expensive plugins by well-known companies like Isotope for free with another purchase. So it's very cheap. If you know where to look, you don't have to pay full price for a lot of these plugins. And in terms of outboard gear, when I'm producing, I produce with some guitars, a couple of microphones, and an analog synth, which is the Korg MS-20 Mini. And obviously, outboard gear and hardware synthesizers are completely unnecessary, but I like the MS-20 Mini because I feel it really helps with my creativity. Most of my tracks start as a simple vocal or guitar line or a chord sequence, and all of the process of composing, assembling, and recording, mixing and mastering the track all happens in Ableton. Once I've finished making these tracks, I also publish and publicise them. And for me, I find that there are lots of great services out there for publishing your music. I use a website called DistroKid, which costs less than £20 per year, and that distributes all of your music to all of the major platforms such as Spotify or Apple Music or iTunes. And what I found more recently is actually there's free alternatives to DistroKid out there. For example, websites like Amuse and Sounddrop, which completely for free allow you to publish your music to all of the major streaming services. And for publicising music, I found that word of mouth and friend and family connections have been like a great way to publicise my music when I was first starting out. Equally, Spotify for Artists, which is a service that Spotify offers, has an editorial playlist submission feature where you can submit your music to be considered to be placed in Spotify's editorial, so hand-picked playlists, which often have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers. So if you're picked for one of those, it's a great way to kind of springboard your career. And in the UK as well, there's BBC Music Introducing, which lets you upload 2 tracks every month, and these are listened to by the radio DJs, and some of them are selected to be played on the radio. So personally, I've had one of my tracks played on the radio twice through BBC Music Introducing, so it is really a great service. And finally, some takeaway points. I would argue that it has never been a better time to get into music production and technology. There's lots of music technology courses popping up at different conservatoires now, so there's much more choice than there was even 3 or 4 years ago in terms of where you can go to study electronic music. It's also easy and much cheaper these days to produce music. There's lots of free and cheap software, and I found that there are huge student discounts on Ableton. And finally, it's easier than ever to get your music heard. Platforms like DistroKid make it easy to get your music onto Spotify and Apple Music, and services like BBC Music Introducing and Spotify for Artists help you promote your music and get it played obviously on the radio or on big Spotify playlists. Thank you for listening.